look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you've given your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart, nerve, and sinew to serve you long after you are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that is in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are no proclamations this evening, but we do have a presentation. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Your Honor, Council, and welcome back, TJ. I'm glad that everything went very well, and I appreciate your wife calling and letting know. So I'd like to take this opportunity to do something a little bit different in the fact that we haven't done it before, and just to speak about the progress that we've made as a city over the last year and look ahead to some of the goals that we've set forth for 2015 throughout our citywide strategic plan. I want to be really careful in how I say that. We will be rolling out to you some budget priorities and some strategic plan priorities and other things. So this body will take part of it. So this really is an introduction of that process, which will ultimately end up in our budget. That being the case, I'd like to proceed with some comments. We don't always take the opportunity to recognize the successes that exist within the city, and we've had many. And I often think of Councilmember MANSPEAKER has often made some comments that we got to be very careful that we're not bragging, that we're not becoming defensive. And with that in mind, I just wanted to recognize, and I didn't mean to pick on him, I just think that that's a norm within our world. In 2014, you adopted a balanced budget with no property tax increase. That's the first part of the good news. The second part of the good news is that we anticipate that we will finish this year with a general fund balance reserve, if not at, very close to 15%, which was a 5-year goal that we set about a year and a half ago, moving forward. In addition to that, as we've talked about, we received an improvement in our bond rating, and we also, as we discussed last week, were awarded the excellence in financial reporting from GFOA. There was a reaccreditation of both Public Works and the Police Department during the last year. And I think most importantly, we've continued to build an experienced and effective team of leaders that provide for a very nice long run of leadership for this community. We hired a new police chief. We hired a new administrative and financial services director. We hired a new chief fiscal officer, a new budget director, and then most recently we hired a neighborhood relations director, which is really taking the city in a very different way of how we interact with the neighborhoods, truly providing a lot of value and trying to, in every case, attempt to drive the service deliverables of the city down to the neighborhood levels to really connect and build a partnership with communities. We've restructured departments in order to foster better communication and offer the highest level of service. Now, this is where I'll jump in with the asterisk. We're not close to being done yet. We have a plan, we have a dream, we have a lot of work, but we still have a long way to go. Over the past year, we've tried to host public meetings. Certainly, some have been very successful, and some, in retrospect, we wish we would have done a few more. We launched, the first city in Kansas to launch the Next Door program, the social media site for neighborhoods. And while I'm not actively participating, I hear nothing but very good things about it and the people are involved. We also have the Topeka E311 program, which was talked about last week. So what's next for Topeka? The 5-year strategic plan is for one purpose, and that's to make Topeka a better place to live, a better community to work and own a business. The plan aligns the city objectives with community and council priorities. Some of those priorities is, number one, to continue to pursue fiscal health and sustainability. We want to make sure that we are good. In fact, I changed that. I think we want to make sure that we're great stewards of the community's monies, and that we make sure that the resources that are allocated within this community are focused on best practices and what's in the best interest of the city. We want to manage departments with a focus on service delivery and achieving the most appropriate fiscal management possible. We want to create a 5-year continuously updated forecast, not just for the general fund, but for all funds, so that each week, at any point in time, that anybody on this body or anybody in the community can go online and take a look at how the city is spending its money. And we're making significant progress there. And we just want to continue to manage our money and assert the best practices so that we are working in a manner that the citizens of this community can be confident. The second thing is we want to continue to build an effective internal and external communication strategy. We need to enhance the public trust. We are in the midst of something which is challenging that. I really appreciated the poem, and it's something that I've had an opportunity to focus on a lot. But we want to create an infrastructure that it easier allows the deployment of information to residents to increase the visibility of what the city is doing, to ensure effectiveness and efficiency in city operations, and to identify education requirements and develop a training strategy that allows us to improve the competency and the skill set of the workforce that is serving this community. The third part, and I'll just wrap up very quickly, is as a part of our commitment to a thriving, livable neighborhoods, we want to create a higher level of engagement with the neighborhoods. We have a lot of NIAs and NAs, and we want to figure out how to work and build on the foundation that's there and make better communication and better partnerships and engage more people so that everybody feels like they have a voice within this community. And the best way to do that is to provide that voice within the neighborhoods themselves. And we've had a lot of conversation about the new police chief. Obviously, public safety in the city as a whole and in the neighborhoods is absolutely very important. Public safety programs need to meet the community's needs, and they have to be sensitive to the financial capacities of this city. And I appreciate the efforts that are going forth both in fire and police to recognize that we have to deliver services, but we also have to understand the finances associated with that. As many people know, we took Mr. Gerber and we took him out of his role temporarily as the Finance and Administrative Services Director, and we put him into the Utilities Department because we have a man who has some skills, who's able to analyze the operations there, and it is a very expensive operation in the city, and our plan is to have him there for a period of 6 months or so, analyzing the situation so that we can go back to the residents of this community. And when we talk about how we're delivering utilities, we can say we're doing it according to best practices and we're doing it in a financially reasonable manner. So we want to plan for infrastructure needs, but also we want to make sure that we're very cognizant of the fact that we're spending the citizens of this community's money in doing this. Our goal is very simple. We want to deliver the highest level of service possible at the best cost possible. We're going to continue to cultivate a service-oriented culture within the organization, and we're going to proactively seek ways to increase visibility and a word that I've come to not like, transparency, within this organization. So that concludes my comments. I just want you to know that there's going to be a lot of conversations about strategic plan, priorities, and budgets going forward, but I just really wanted to roll it off with an idea as to where we're at and where we want to go. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. That's a energetic agenda plan. Are there council members, comments? Councilman De La Isla?
Thank you, Mayor Wolgast. Mr. Coulson, thank you so much for starting the year with such enthusiasm for us and giving us a tone. I would dare to say that you forgot two big things that we've been doing better as well.
Let me write those down.
And those two things are that I'm very excited. Brandon Kaufman has been a wonderful addition to our city. And for us to receive the financial statements in the fashion that we received them, it is spectacular. And those are open. Anybody can just take a look at them. They're part of our agenda packet when we receive them. If anybody wants to take a look at how our city is performing month by month, you're able to do so. And the other thing that was forgotten as well, and of course I'm the numbers geek, I always do this, is the fact that we had an excellent audit. We did have our recognition for our CAFR, but then again, we had an excellent audit. And when I think back at years in the past, that was not the case with the city of Topeka. Like anything that is a work in progress, we still have work to do, but the important thing is that we're doing the work. And I want to thank not only you, but your staff and my colleagues that are all working together to make this happen.
Thank you. Any comments? Seeing none, thank you again for the presentation. We will proceed with the roll call.
Mayor Wolgast?
Here.
Ms. Hiller?
Here.
Mr. Brown? Ms. Ortiz? Here. Ms. Everhart? Here. Ms. De La Isla?
Here?
Mr. MANSPEAKER?
Here.
Ms. Schwartz?
Here.
Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
And Mr. Harmon.
And we want to say, Councilman Brown, again, I was prepared to announce that you would not be here this evening, but we're very glad to have you back joining us. Glad to have you here. Council members, there are no additions or deletions to the agenda, and there is no executive session tonight, so we'll proceed with the consent agenda.
A is minutes of the regular meeting of January 6, 2015, and there are no applications this evening.
Okay, that is the consent agenda. Is there Councilwoman Schwartz?
Thank you, Mr.
Doing,
Mayor. That's
doing,
okay.
doing better.
A lot of
lately.
S's over here. I just move adoption of the
Okay,
consent agenda.
Ms. Delisla seconds. The motion to approve the consent agenda, discussion, all those in favor vote yes, opposed vote no.
We have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the consent agenda is approved. We'll proceed to the action items, and the first is a real estate agreement.
A is approval of a real estate purchase agreement between the Topeka Rescue Mission and the City of Topeka for the sale of surplus real property located at 630 Northwest Topeka Boulevard in the amount of $25,000 and specifically authorizing Mayor Larry E. Wolgast to execute the agreement.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you. Bob Kennedy is available to answer any questions. Approval of this would authorize the sale of the surplus real property located at 630 Northwest Topeka Boulevard to the Topeka Rescue Mission. Mr. Kennedy is available to present and answer any questions you may have.
And could you just give a brief overview, because I had a question on what was the purpose, or what was it being used for, and what is it now, and what's on the property, and et cetera?
Sure. We were approached by the rescue mission to acquire that lot to add to their project, the daycare center, child care center that they are planning to develop there. First, an adjoining property. This property would add enough property for them to place their building, a complete building on the lot, and then there will be a fenced-in area behind for the children. The property is surplus to our needs. It was initially acquired in condemnation when we did the bridge, the North Topeka Bridge, or Topeka Bridge. And it's no longer needed, and we're paying to have it mowed and maintained and everything else. So it's kind of a plus in that we get rid of property we don't need, and they can use it for the purposes that they need.
And there are no structures on it?
No structures on
Plain
ours.
Piece of land?
There's a structure on adjoining that they're going to remodel, and it'll be part of their building for the child care, but our property has no property.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Councilman Harmon?
Thank you, Your Honor. Bob, did we have the property appraised?
Yes, we did. We appraised it at $25,000. Bob Taggart. We acquired it, I want to say in 2000, but we acquired it for $18,500, I think, in condemnation proceedings.
So the 25,000 are recent?
$25,000 is the most recent, April of this year.
Thank you.
For 2014.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Councilman Brown?
I'd move to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Brown moves to approve. Councilwoman Delisla seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes, opposed vote no.
We have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the real estate agreement is approved. Item B is an application We have one.
Yes, we have one application this evening for retail cereal malt beverage for Walmart store number 6585, located at 335 Southwest McVicker Avenue.
Thank you. We have one application for your approval. Councilman Ortiz moves to approve. Deputy Mayor seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Opposed vote no. I vote yes.
We have 9 yes and Mr. MANSPEAKER voting no.
9 having voted yes, the applications are approved. That completes the action items. We will proceed to the non-action items. And the first is a discussion items. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Your Honor. The first item is a discussion pertaining to the Topeka Zoo Master Plan. And Brendan Wiley, the zoo director, is available, and it's always a little nerve-wracking when you just give him free rein to do whatever he wants. But I've only saw one animal here today.
Well, and I can assure you that I do not have any animals on my body or in the podium, but that's,
Good to know.
anyway. Yeah. So I'm
Live
going to
animals.
regret that one, aren't I? Anyway, Mayor,
Mr. Wiley.
Council, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak with you tonight. Yes, we are here to give an update on our master plan. And our master plan is truly a journey. Some of you have seen the first pages that are included in a packet, pages towards the end. Some of you may not have seen just yet. Now, I am one that enjoys doing presentations for the community, and I have seen many of you at some of those presentations. And you know that I always start with a question. And the question is, if you could, would you change the world? Now, you guys don't have to answer that because in your role of public service and commitment, you are already changing our world. But there's another question that I ask, and it's this one. It's, do zoos matter? In my role, I need to know what the opinion of our community is on that topic. And in answering that question, one way that I do that is with this question. How many screens do you have in your home? And if you have kids, wow, really, how many screens do you have in your home? We've got cell phones, we've got tablets, laptops, PCs, televisions. It's how we learn, it's how we communicate. And we all know that that happens today in a lightning quick way. News cycles change, topics change. But as we learn, we study how people learn about animals. Now, I can show you this picture on a screen. But you see, when you see, I told you I didn't have an animal on me. When you see the live animal, it makes a much stronger connection. And that is one way that zoos matter, their ability to make connections to people. Now, the real question, as we're talking about a master plan, is, does this zoo matter? And to put that in perspective, we're talking about what once was known as the world-famous Topeka Zoo. And that question, as it relates to a master plan, is how do we bring that essence back? How do we bring that feeling back to our community that the world-famous Topeka Zoo still lives here? Now, some of us got to go through another interesting journey together, and it dealt with these. A very political elephant conversation that, I'm just going to pull your papers back and she'll be a little bit more comfortable. Thank you, Councilman. A lot of us got to go through a journey about elephants, their role here at our zoo, and their future role in our community. And the community came together and said, yes, elephants are an important aspect of this zoo. So we began to look and wonder, what does the future look like with elephants playing a much larger role in our zoo, in our community? And through a master planning process, we came up with a very beautiful plan. It's a plan that arranges our zoo into zoogeographic areas where animals from like continents are displayed together, where you can tie in culture, where we would have an African section, an Asian section, a North American section, where we kind of redefine the customer, the guest paths and routes with a new entrance concept that not only is much more open, much more transparent, much more inviting, that actually takes an animal exhibit and places it in front of the ticketing point in the zoo. We know that we are a publicly funded zoo, and we know today not everyone has access to our facility. But in this plan, everyone would have access to part of the facility every day. We looked at how people traverse through our zoo and created concepts for gathering places or plazas. One right inside the zoo called World Plaza. Another one before you get to the North American experience. That's a butterfly plaza. These are places where kids can have fun, where adults can congregate, where people can talk, relax, share the experience with their groups, all at the same time that is very much in an atmosphere that matches our mission. As for the elephant piece, the concepts that we produced are very open, very large, with the guest side being able to see everything that goes on in the program, with the indoor space being very much open, being very transparent, being one that could also support a much larger elephant group. 6 to 8 elephants, a breeding facility, and literally a world-class exhibit. Now, if I can get you to look at the monitor for just a minute, and we'll zoom in to the elephant piece. This purple ring represents the outdoor exhibit that they have access to today. This purple ring shows how much bigger of a footprint that they will gain through this process. Now, as we worked on this plan, we thought, it's amazing, it's great, it's wonderful. But I remember a meeting where we asked ourselves, how many stars would literally have to get up and get in line, one right after another, for this to become a reality? Now, these stars happen to be our stars. This is the Milky Way galaxy. And we're looking at this plan, asking that question, where do you start? How can you make it happen? And I remember that feeling of just going, or aw, but no, it was definitely Now, at some point in time, when you take an ambitious plan like this, someone's going to ask the question, well, what does something like this cost? And to answer that accurately, you would truly have to study the design and cost of every different piece. And to date, there are only 2 pieces that we have a good solid cost estimate on. One being the elephant, and one being a project I'm going to talk about here in just a moment. But what we can do is we can look at zoos in other markets similar to ours, look at projects that they've done, and we can assign an approximate estimate to what something like a tiger experience might cost at our zoo. And what we came up with when we looked at this entire plan is that there is probably in the neighborhood of $43 million worth of work on that pretty colorful page. But it's also about $43 million worth of work over 20 years. Now, I'm going to tell you how we broke it down, and then I'm also going to tell you why that $43 million is almost a worthless number. How we broke it down is this. $43 million over 20 years is essentially 2 funding phases of about $20 million each. And we anticipate that to pull something like that off, it's going to take both a public piece and a private piece to make it happen. In the first funding phase, the public piece would be represented by the half-cent sales tax extension. And the private piece of the first funding phase begins with a project that we call Camp Cowabunga. Now, here's why the $43 million will never be the right number. Because until we get in to actually design a concept, we won't know what the actual cost is. And as we've been talking to people, we have learned that some people have actually dreamed bigger than we have. Now, that question, where do you begin? We realized at some point that there potentially might be some sales tax revenue that would come to support some of these master plan projects. But at the same time, we also knew that that revenue would not be collected or begin to be collected until 2017. We didn't want to wait that long to get started. We wanted to pick a project, start fundraising for it, and begin to show the community what is possible at our zoo. As we had gone through this master plan process, there's a circle, and oops, it's right there, and we labeled it through the process, the Heart of Africa. And we labeled it that because we didn't know what it was, but we could see the enormous potential in that one space. It's a space that is completely surrounded by other animal exhibits. And we knew that something special could happen there. Now, about the same time, we began to be more and more engaged with someone that many of you may remember the name, Gary Clark, the first director of the Topeka Zoo, the director that made the zoo world famous, and our director emeritus. And as we were talking with Gary about what made this zoo so special in its heyday, and as we were listening to his experiences, this opportunity suddenly jumped out at us. And before long, we had a concept that we call Camp Cowabunga. Camp Cowabunga is that experience where you are surrounded by animal exhibits. It's an opportunity for us to bring people into the zoo, into an incredible learning environment where you actually get to experience some of those same feelings that people experience on safari. The interior views will be very different than what's there today, with connections to African culture, to those feelings that you have when you're on safari, to the very activities that are around the exhibit. Now, attached to the exhibit is a place affectionately called Dung Beetle Square. Dung Beetle Square is that place when you're on safari, once you've returned, where you can relax, share your experiences, still be part of the environment, and with many activities for children to enjoy, all set in a very aesthetic, Africanized feel on this part of the zoo journey. Now, in the center of Dung Beetle Square will be what to us is a famous sculpture of a lion called Genesis. And surrounding Dung Beetle Square are 3 bronze dung beetle sculptures that were a gift from one of the first donors to this project to help get the ball rolling. All right. To help get the ball rolling on the fundraising effort. And, well, not sure that one needs explaining. But back to the Milky Way reference. As it turns out, literally star after star have fallen in line. Believe it or not, dung beetles actually navigate based on the position of the Milky Way galaxy in the sky. And now, for the first time, we are trying to talk about what is coming next. With Camp Cowabunga, we officially now are in the design phase. With one of the first gifts, we were able to trigger the design process and anticipate that we will have construction documents completed within the next 4 to 5 months. And if all goes well, hopefully be breaking ground on that this fall for an opening of spring 2017. Now, back to that elephant thing. The elephant thing is really what drove this project of creating a master plan in the first place. And what is on the screen is an extremely, extremely ambitious timeline with significant projects opening in 2017, followed by a new giraffe experience in 18, the new tiger experience in 19, all projects that create the infrastructure work to lay in the new elephant exhibit, which could be done at the very earliest in 2020. It's really one of the nicest spiders you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know, but yeah, it's better.
That's zoo humor for making sure you're still paying attention. Now, as we've gone through this process, what we didn't expect is some of the generosity that this community has to offer. And this picture is not included in your packet. It's labeled Asian Garden at the bottom. It's not a completed concept yet, but I will tell you that there is an anonymous donor that is interested in giving Topeka a world-class, truly a world-class Asian garden experience. As this drawing stands, this would be one of the top 5 Asian gardens in the country. Now, I do want to remind everyone that great things do and can happen at our zoo, and that we really are headed the right direction, and the zoo is in good paws or hands. But back to this question. If there is one thing I could convey about our master plan journey tonight, it would be this. I cannot describe the experience of going to meet with someone where you're hoping that you can inspire them enough to change the world, and you leave that encounter with your world changed. This community has so many incredibly generous, giving, caring people. It's just been a truly amazing experience.
Thank you. Wow, very exciting, interesting to see, and to dream with you on the possibilities. Comments, questions, council members? Councilwoman Schwartz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to commend Brendan and the work that he's done, and the fact that I've had a lot of constituents tell me they wouldn't have voted for the half-cent sales tax if the zoo wasn't in it. So I think that you're making lots of strides in Topeka, way past the days that our certification was questioned and all of that. So thank you so much for your hard work.
Thank you, and thanks for your support. I get to take the credit. We have a really great team and great leadership that makes this possible.
You said you will hope to have the drawings in that time, and that will be the drawings for how much of the plan, or?
For just the one project,
Okay,
Camp
that's what I thought.
Cowabunga.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right, thanks. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, and make sure that we have everything returned the live objects back in your hands. Okay, we have then a second discussion item, Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask Mr. SCHMIDT, City Attorney, just to give a very brief overview. There's been a lot of discussion and moving parts in the Heartland Park deal, so I thought it might be good just to not leave it hanging out there for Chad to provide what will probably be a very brief overview.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, council, as all of us know, Heartland Park has been a challenging issue, especially over, I would say, the last few months. I guess I will start with kind of where we are legally with the Court of Appeals. As many of you probably read in the paper today, we got the official orders today. The appellant, who is Mr. Emming, they gave him an extension to file his briefs until the 16th. Then we have 30 days to reply, but we'll reply within a week. It won't be 30 days. And then after our reply, the Court of Appeals has said that they'll grant that the temporary stay, meaning we can't do anything, will be for an additional 10 days. Just doing the math on that, we all know under the memorandum of understanding and the workout agreement, February 1st was a pretty important day in terms of when different people would need to get paid. So meeting that timeline, I would say, would be challenging, but we are still moving towards doing what we need to do to meet that timeline. But in reality, at this point, everybody's kind of stopped from doing anything. You can't sell bonds, market bonds, move forward as this court process is playing out. So legally, that's where we are. We had our first meeting with Post Audit, welcomed that meeting. It was a good discussion, and we have another one scheduled. And I will say I think they've been really good discussions, and we've, they talked about different documents, and all our documents are public. They're all on our website, so it's not difficult to get those. But I think they've been good meetings, and we look forward to those. And in terms of the RFP, we continue conversations, but everything is kind of at a standstill right now until we get some of these other issues resolved. But kind of that's where we're at, and where we're at is kind of in this standstill right now until some of these issues get resolved. So,
Okay, thank you. Other questions, comments? Mr. SCHMIDT? Okay. Seeing none, we will proceed with announcements. Mr. City Manager?
I have none, thank you.
First, I would like to introduce Grant Nickel. Grant, if you would stand. Here is a scout from Troop 11 at Christ the King Church, and this is part of your citizen badge that you are attending tonight. And there were some here last week. Congratulations, you're at a short meeting. But glad to have you here. Appreciate and good luck. Thank you. I just want to acknowledge that this is the week of the Living the Dream. Had the opportunity to participate in the Unity Musical Celebration last Sunday evening to kick off the week, and there are events going every day and some twice a day. Then this Saturday is the banquet, and the speaker is SCHMIDT Christkin, who was a participant in a Selma March at a very young age, will be the speaker at the major event, the banquet this coming week, coming Saturday. And also, as you may know, Topeka has one of the largest involvements of a community over the span of time of any city entity in the country. So we certainly acknowledge and thank all the people who work on this. It's a big effort, and it's a very successful effort. Councilman MANSPEAKER.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I told a friend that I would mention the Zumba-a-thon that is this Saturday at Lee Arena at Washburn. It is a benefit for the families of fallen Officer Harwood, for the family of fallen Officer Harwood, to send them to some a convention or a meeting or something in D.C. So I think it's a great opportunity for folks to come out, get a little exercise. I will be there. I don't know what Zumba-ing is or looks like, but I have to imagine I won't be very good at it. Secondly, I just want to thank Silverbacks. Obviously, in full disclosure, I'm a member of their board, but I was out of town last week when it was bitterly, bitterly cold here in Topeka. And the Silverbacks is a zero administration, nobody gets a salary, it's just a bunch of people who work together to try to fill voids in our community. And the void that was missing that night was a safe place for people who live on the streets to survive the night, which is disappointing to me in this day and age, especially when there's grant funds and all kinds of other dollars that should be helping this specific issue within our community. I really appreciate the folks there pulling it together in a matter of 24 hours. And last year they kept it open for one night. This year they were able to keep it open for 3 nights. They most certainly saved somebody's life. And then specifically, I would like to thank Amy and Kim Weidler-Heighton and Ronnie and Les Wooten and all the countless volunteers who served 3-hour shifts for some 72 hours, I can't do that, 72 hours, somewhere in there, for 3 days. So I really appreciate their effort, and I know that those who are most vulnerable in our community appreciate the effort as well. Finally, I feel it's important for me to announce I will not be seeking re-election to the Topeka City Council. This will be my only term. Over the holidays, I spent a lot of time with my family. My son Henry will be 4 this spring, or this fall. And he wasn't even born yet when I took office. So he, my daughters Stella and Maggie, and my wife Cheyenne, I think would rather have me at home more often. And I would honestly rather be at home with them more often. But secondly, I also have a full-time job. City Council is not my full-time gig. I am a union organizer for the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. And I had a very successful year last year. One of my biggest successes was 7.5 hours from Topeka, Kansas. It is a little difficult to travel 7.5 hours and make sure you make it back for a Tuesday night meeting, which I did a pretty good job of in 2014. So, I appreciate all the time and all the effort and all the good things that we've accomplished over the last 4 years. I would encourage anyone who lives within the 6th District to strongly consider running for office. It's a very rewarding experience, and I can most assuredly tell you that the city of Topeka will need your help. Where I go from here, what I do from here, I'm not really sure. I'm going to be a good dad, and I'm going to be one hell of a union organizer. So look out, corporate America. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and those are significant comments, and we'll have an opportunity to comment on that more in the next several months. Councilwoman Schwartz, Councilman Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I would like to acknowledge all of the people who participated in and organized the Jam for Justice this weekend, which was a great event to bring attention and raise some funds to fight human trafficking in the city. They did a great job at the Celtic Fox. There was great music and art and wonderful participation. Moving on, there's been a great deal of discussion in the local media lately about finances and the financial future of the city. And I wanted to say that I welcome those discussions, and I believe that criticism and transparency help build a better system. The Heartland Park issue has raised many questions about the wisdom of the financial actions of this city, and I think that's good that we're debating them in public and airing those arguments. I think it's also important to recognize the progress this city has made with regard to its fiscal health. The city manager's office, his financial team, and this council have faced many difficult decisions over the last few years, and those decisions have consequences for all Topekans. The 2013 city budget was adopted with expenditures that would outpace projected revenues by $1.5 million, causing a decrease in city reserves and leaving just a 5% fund balance. The new city administration at that time and the council, which I was not a part of, set a goal of restoring that metric to 15%.
Through mid-year adjustments in 2013, we actually ended up adding $3.9 million to the ending balance and raising the fund balance up to 12%. The next year, we were presented with and passed a fully balanced budget that would not draw on reserves. This resulted in an ending year balance that hit that 15% goal. In 2015, we were again presented with and passed a balanced budget that required no mill levy increase and vastly improved the financial outlook of the city. We have seen greatly improved monthly and quarterly financial reporting by the city under the city manager's office and the finance department. Our annual reports meet the Government Financial Officers Association comprehensive annual financial report standards. And last week we saw the finance department achieve the exclusive Certificate of Achievement in Excellence in Financial Reporting. In May of 2013, this city's financial ratings on GO bonds was downgraded due to sustained losses in reserves. In July of 2014, we saw Standard & Poor's upgrade our GO bond rating based on improved practices and increased reserve levels. I say this not to make the case that we can't do better or that our financial health is as good as it can be, but to offer some perspective on what we have been and where we are going, on where we have been and where we are going. It's easy to say the city did this poorly in the past, but who makes up the city often changes, and it's important to recognize that when discussing the wisdom of fiscal actions past and present, this city should be proud of the financial turnaround we have made and continue to make. There are many more tough choices ahead, and I have no doubt that I'm going to be in disagreement on some of them. But we've come a long way, and I am proud of the work the city staff and this council has done financially. We can get better, but we can engage the public better. But I believe that we're all pulling in the right direction, and let's disagree and air our arguments, but keep in mind that the best interests of this city are the goal of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Mr. Councilman Harmon, Councilman Hiller.
Just to share two events that I was involved in last week as the year started to kind of pick up some steam again. One, I was privileged to have been pursued by people who have been trying for years to do something special in our court system for a particularly challenged population. And I attended then on Wednesday, the first session of our city's new alternative sentencing court at municipal court. There were two clients there who were both represented by counsel, people with severe and persistent mental illness that had transgressed in some way, but had been decided that perhaps an alternative sentencing procedure would work better for them. It worked very well, and credit to Judge Miller who presided over that court, and there were conversations about the fact that he and others had gone and really looked into similar courts. We certainly have a fabulous mental health and support community here, and they were excited to be there. I was excited to be there for that first session. My understanding is we may have a briefing about that in a little while after there have been a couple more sessions, but a real landmark for Topeka, and I'm proud of everyone involved. And second, on a little different note, I was asked to give the welcome to the Kansas Fairs and Festivals Association, their annual meeting, which apparently is frequently in Topeka. I did that on Saturday morning, and I really hadn't known what to expect, but there were over 400 people there from all over the state. They come regularly here. They love to come here. It was fun then to talk with them about our capital being done and to begin a conversation that all of us, I think, have committed to talking about our historic sites, our neighborhoods on the move, all the things that we're doing, and to touch on introducing our new brand, just verbally at that point, but that we want to be the event capital of our own city, but of Kansas and this region as well. And so it was fun to share that with them as well, and exciting to see them. Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
it.
Councilman Brown, Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to personally thank you for getting Channel 13 and Me TV back on the air.
That's an inside joke that we were responsible.
calls.
Yes, we had calls to help with that effort.
Thank you.
That's it.
You're doing
That's
your
it.
job.
Okay, thank you. That's it. Deputy Mayor, Councilwoman Delisla.
Just wanted to say thank you to my colleagues, Councilwoman Hiller and Councilman Schmidt, We had a pretty full house last week when we had our first meeting of the year for the Economic and Community Development Committee. And we are getting ready to present to the City Council a proposal of funds requested for this committee to allocate to other organizations. I'm happy to say that at each meeting that we've had very positive feedback with regards to the process, positive feedback with regards to how the comments and concerns that the grantees had last year have all been addressed. And we're looking forward to presenting to the City Council as soon as it's up in the agenda, the findings of that. In addition to that, I wanted to celebrate the buses. I don't know if you've seen the Ichabod bus, but it rocks. You cannot miss it. You cannot miss it. So I'm just very excited about what's happening there. And just looking forward to an awesome year. That's all.
Thank you. I appreciate the comment on the committees. I think our committees are doing well, important meetings, some functioning well, as I think they should in our governmental system. We have one person who is signed to speak in public comment, Jason Fazell. Jason?
Just have a handout I'll pass around if everyone mind taking one. Good evening, my name is Jason Fazell, 1620 Southwest 3rd Street, fighting first, represented by Karen Hiller, formerly of the 6th District here in town. And I just wanted to address an issue that's been in the news kind of over the years, but more recently in the editorials in the paper and newsletter articles in the paper. I don't mean to step on Councilman MANSPEAKER's swan song here this evening, as he spent the better part of today lamenting on...
Mayor, you don't address people directly.
That's
Thank
correct. You address the council
Sure.
As a whole
Sure.
in your comments.
As the community's been discussing, there's a legitimate concern whether the use of social media during public meetings is an acceptable and useful medium for a deliberative body or members of a deliberative body to engage in. I certainly would start by saying I think the press does an excellent job. Tim Hrencher, Ally Van Dyke, Justin Searcy, and others members of the press keeping the public informed about what goes on here. Of course, the public TV channel, the streaming on the web, anybody can come down and follow the events of the meeting. But when individual members start communicating with constituents and potentially each other during public meetings in a way that's not accessible to everybody up here at the diocese and all the people at home that may not have computer access or may not have access to that, I think it does a disservice to the council. I think its use has not always been for the best. I think there are individuals that the city editorial board, although as was pointed out, did not name directly, it goes without saying that they used to take pot shots against council members, to not have substantive debate or offer substantive amendments during your deliberations, but rather make comments publicly and not try to engage in the debate or engage in a constructive process here at the council has been unfortunate. I will just point out that the Kansas Open Meetings Act does say that a gathering or assembly is defined as any meeting that may occur in person or through the use of a telephone or any other medium for interactive communication, and the Kansas Attorney General has written numerous opinions that state that that includes social media. And so certainly it opens up the potential for there not being a record of this conversation that's happening during council meetings when members are doing that communication. I would say that maybe the concern is largely moot now, not to point anybody out individually, as I'm not allowed to do that, but there were certainly certain practitioners of this practice before the council. I will point out the back side of this editorial, that's from Ann Arbor. It kind of parallels the editorial or I'm sorry, this is a news article. They actually enacted rules in Ann Arbor. The back side are a couple comments from the articles that ran here recently. And you'll note it's a couple people that I rarely agree with, at least Zorak and Betty Crocker. You know, unfortunately, I wish that those names, that folks would have to sign their real names to their opinions online. I do so, but not everybody does. But people have a sense of who they are and what they stand for. You don't find often in the Capital Journal comments that 14 people agree with Zorak and 0 people disagree. Well, this is an area where folks did. I think if it becomes a problem again, the council might want to consider enacting rules that would limit the use of social media during city council meetings by members, so that it doesn't become a concern for the Open Meetings Act and for record keeping of the work you all are doing. So thank you for your work.
Thank
Happy
you.
New Year.
Thank you for your comments.
Any questions?
Don't see any. Thank you. There being no further business, the meeting is adjourned.